Commander Vexthor stood on the bridge of his ship, the meditation of stars, watching the endless darkness of space roll past the viewing screens. He had been exploring the unknown regions of the galaxy for 15 years now, and in all that time he had seen many strange things. But today would be different. Today would change everything he knew about the universe. The Kralthians were proud people. They had traveled between the stars for 3,000 years. They had built an empire that stretched across hundreds of worlds. They believed they knew everything there was to know about space travel and the species that lived among the stars. Vexthor had met dozens of alien races in his career. Some were friendly, others were not, but all of them followed the same basic patterns. All of them made sense. Junior Scanner Thys looked up from her station with wide eyes. Her scales had turned pale, which meant she was confused or worried about something. "Commander, I am picking up something strange on the long-range sensors," she said. Vexthor walked over to her station and looked at the readings. There was definitely something out there. Something big. Something moving fast. Too fast. "What is it?" he asked. "I do not know, sir. The energy signature does not match anything in our database. The speed is far beyond what our ships can achieve." "Should I send out a probe?" Vexthor thought for a moment. They were in uncharted space, far from any known civilization. Whatever was out there could be dangerous. But they were explorers. Finding new things was their job. "No, we will investigate ourselves. Set a course to intercept. But keep our weapons ready just in case." The crew worked quickly. The meditation of stars changed direction and increased speed. As they got closer, the readings became more clear. The object was indeed a ship. A massive ship. Much bigger than their own vessel. "Size estimate?" Vexthor asked. Science Officer Krell checked his instruments twice before answering. "Commander, the vessel is 3 times our size. Maybe larger. I have never seen a ship this big before. 3 times their size." The meditation of stars was not a small ship. It was a proper exploration vessel with a crew of 200. Whatever they were approaching was enormous. "Show me a visual," Vexthor ordered. The main screen changed. The image that appeared made everyone on the bridge go silent. The ship in front of them looked like nothing they had ever seen. It was all hard angles and thick armor plating. There were no smooth curves, no elegant designs like most spacefaring civilizations preferred. This ship looked like it was built for war. Weapons were mounted everywhere on the hull. Big weapons, small weapons, weapons they could identify and weapons they had never seen before. On the side of the ship, they could see letters in an unknown language. The computer tried to translate but failed. The letters spelled out, "UNS Valiant. Try to make contact," Vexthor said. His voice was steady, but inside he felt nervous. This ship could destroy them easily if it wanted to. Communications Officer Prell sent out a signal on all standard frequencies. The message was simple. They came in peace. They wanted to talk. They meant no harm. Nothing happened for several long minutes. Then Prell tried again, this time using mathematical patterns. Every intelligent species in the galaxy understood mathematics. It was the universal language. The response came quickly this time. A voice speaking in a language they had never heard. The computer worked hard to process it. The translation came through slowly. "This is the United Nations Starship Valiant. State your designation and intentions." The voice was direct, strong. There was no warmth in it, but no hostility either. Just business. Vexthor took a deep breath. "This is Commander Vexthor of the Kralthian Empire, aboard the exploration vessel Meditation of Stars. We come in peace. We seek to make contact with new civilizations and welcome them into the galactic community. We mean you no harm." There was a pause. Then the voice returned. "Stand by for visual communication." The screen flickered. When it cleared, Vexthor saw his first human. The creature was sitting in a chair on what looked like the bridge of a ship. He had short gray hair and blue eyes that seemed to see right through the screen. His skin was pale, and he wore a dark blue uniform that looked both simple and military at the same time. Behind him, the bridge was full of activity. Dozens of other humans worked at various stations. "Commander Vexthor," the human said, "I am Captain Daniel Hayes of Earth. We appreciate your peaceful approach. However, I must inform you that you are currently in human-claimed space. We have been tracking your vessel for the past 6 hours. 6 hours. Vexthor felt his blood run cold. They had only detected the human ship a few minutes ago. How had these humans been watching them for 6 hours without being seen? "Captain Hayes," Vexthor said carefully. The Kralthian Empire has no record of any civilization claiming this region of space. Under galactic law established by the Council of Nine, unclaimed space cannot be— Commander, Hayes interrupted, but his voice was not rude. We are not familiar with this Council of Nine. Humanity does not recognize the authority of an organization we have never met. We claimed this space 3 months ago when we established the New Horizon colony on the 4th planet of the system you are approaching. Vexthor could not hide his shock. The system Hayes mentioned was 2 light-years away. No species he knew could detect colonies from that distance. And more importantly, the Kralthians had surveyed this region recently. There had been no colonies. No signs of any civilization at all. Captain Hayes, our records show that this region was surveyed 8 months ago. There were no settlements detected. Hayes nodded as if he expected that response. That is correct. Your last survey was 8 months ago. We have reviewed your scan patterns. Very thorough, but not frequent enough to track a species that expands as quickly as humanity does. The casual way Hayes said this made it even more frightening. The humans had not only detected Kralthian survey ships, but they had studied their patterns. They knew when and where the Kralthians had been. They had planned their colony placement accordingly. Krell leaned close to Vexthor and whispered urgently, "Commander, that should be impossible. Our survey logs are encrypted with quantum-level security. No one should be able to access them." But clearly someone had. These humans had, Captain Hayes continued speaking. "Commander, I believe there has been a misunderstanding, but it is one we can resolve peacefully. Humanity wishes to establish formal diplomatic relations with the Kralthian Empire. However, before we proceed, I think it is important that you understand what humanity brings to the galactic community. I want there to be no misunderstandings between us." He turned his head slightly and spoke to someone off-screen. "Lieutenant Morris, please show our guests what we are capable of." Standard Protocol 7. The sensors on the meditation of stars suddenly screamed warnings. New contacts appeared everywhere. Small ships, dozens of them, surrounded Vexthor's vessel in a perfect sphere. They had been invisible until this moment. "Those are our Wraith fighters," Hayes explained. "They have been shadowing your ship since you entered this system. We wanted to make sure your intentions were peaceful before we revealed ourselves." Vexthor could barely breathe. His ship had been surrounded, targeted, completely at the mercy of these humans from the very beginning. And he had never known, not for 1 second. "Now," Hayes said, and there might have been the smallest hint of a smile on his face, "let me show you why humanity has earned its place among the stars. Watch the asteroid cluster at coordinate 774. On the screen, the massive human warship began to glow with power. Energy readings climbed to impossible levels. Then the Valiant fired. The weapons were like nothing Vexthor had ever seen. Beams of light, streams of metal moving at incredible speeds, and explosions of pure energy all struck the asteroid cluster at once. The asteroids, each one the size of a small moon, simply vanished. They did not break apart. They did not shatter. They were erased from existence. Nobody on the Kralthian bridge spoke. Nobody moved. They simply stared at the empty space where the asteroids had been moments before. Captain Hayes turned back to face them. "Humanity learned long ago that the universe is not kind to the weak, Commander. We have built our civilization accordingly. Now shall we discuss how our 2 species might work together in peace?" Vexthor asked for time to think. He needed to contact his superiors and report what he had seen. Captain Hayes agreed without hesitation. In fact, he seemed pleased by the request. "Take all the time you need, Commander. While you deliberate, I will send you some basic information about humanity. It might help you understand us better." The data packet that arrived was enormous. It contained historical records, cultural information, and technological specifications. As Science Officer Krell began reviewing it, his expression changed from curious to shocked to horrified. "Commander, you need to see this immediately." Vexthor moved to Krell's station. The scientist had pulled up a timeline of human development. The numbers made no sense at first. Then Vexthor realized they were correct, and that made them even more terrifying. Humans achieved spaceflight only 268 years ago, Krell said quietly. They went from basic chemical rockets to faster-than-light travel in less than 3 centuries. The Kralthians had taken 4,000 years to make that same journey. Most civilized species took even longer. Some never made it at all, but humans had done it in less time than Vexthor had been alive. How is that possible? Vexthor asked. Krell pulled up more data. They are incredibly adaptive. When they encounter a problem, they solve it quickly. They share knowledge freely among themselves. And they take risks that most species would consider suicidal. But the technology was not what disturbed Vexthor the most. It was the history. Krell opened files that detailed Earth's past, and it read like a horror story. Wars. Endless wars. Conflicts fought with primitive weapons that killed thousands. Then conflicts fought with advanced weapons that killed millions. Nuclear bombs that could destroy entire cities. Biological weapons that could wipe out populations. Chemical agents that caused suffering beyond imagination. They fought each other? Vexthor asked. Their own species? Constantly, Krell replied. For most of their history, Earth was divided into hundreds of separate nations. Many of these nations were hostile to each other. They fought over resources, territory, ideology, religion, and sometimes for no clear reason at all. Vexthor read through the records of something called World War II. The numbers were staggering. 70 million dead, entire continents turned into battlefields, cities reduced to rubble, and this was just one of many such conflicts. They developed nuclear weapons during one of their wars. Krell continued. These weapons could destroy their entire civilization. They built thousands of them. They aimed them at their own cities. And somehow they managed not to use them. The psychological pressure of that era should have destroyed their society, but it had not. Instead, humans had endured. They had survived. Eventually, they had even unified. The record showed that Earth's nations had finally come together 90 years ago, forming something called the United Nations. But it had not been an easy peace. It had been earned through centuries of suffering. Vexthor moved to the biological data. Human physiology was impressive in a frightening way. They came from a high-gravity world, which made them physically stronger than most spacefaring species. Their bones were dense. Their muscles were powerful. They could survive injuries that would kill a Krelthian. Their immune systems were aggressive to the point of violence. They could fight off diseases that would devastate other species. They could eat a shocking variety of foods, including some substances that were poisonous to most aliens. In fact, humans consumed many toxic substances recreationally. They called it drinking alcohol and considered it a social activity. But the psychological profile was the most disturbing part. Humans had something they called spite. They would accept harm to themselves if it meant harming an enemy more. They could hold grudges for generations. They never forgot an insult or an injury. At the same time, they could form deep bonds with others. They felt loyalty to their families, their friends, their nations, and even to abstract concepts like freedom or justice. They would die for these things. There is a note here from their diplomatic corps, Krell said. He read it aloud. Humanity wishes to be clear about our nature. We are capable of great kindness and terrible violence. Which you experience depends entirely on how you approach us. We prefer friendship, but we are prepared for war. Vexthor realized something important. The weapons demonstration had not been a threat. It had been a courtesy. The humans were showing the Kralthians exactly what they could do. So there would be no misunderstandings later. No surprises. No excuses. It was a very human way of doing things. Brutal honesty. He opened a communication channel to the Kralthian High Command. The signal would take time to reach them, but this was too important to delay. He sent all the data, all the sensor readings, and his own observations. The response came back faster than expected. The Admiralty had reviewed everything. Their message was brief and very clear. Establish peaceful relations. Do not provoke them under any circumstances. We are sending diplomats immediately. When Vexthor reconnected with Captain Hayes, he chose his words carefully. Captain, the Kralthian Empire would be honored to establish diplomatic relations with humanity. We apologize for any intrusion into your territory. It was not intentional. Hayes smiled. It was a small expression, but it made his face look warmer, more approachable. No apology necessary, Commander. Space is vast. Misunderstandings happen. Why don't you come aboard the Valiant? We can discuss this properly. I will even share some of our coffee with you. It is a drink we enjoy. I think you will find that humans are quite pleasant company once you get past all the weapons. The invitation seemed genuine. Vexthor accepted. As his shuttle flew toward the Valiant, he got a closer look at the human warship. Every surface served multiple purposes. The armor plates also worked as heat sinks. The weapons could retract into the hull when not needed. Even the design, which looked brutal at first, was actually highly efficient. Humans built things that worked. The hangar bay was massive. It was filled with the small stealth fighters that had surrounded his ship, along with other craft he could not identify. Human personnel moved with military precision, but they also seemed relaxed. They talked to each other easily. Some of them even laughed. It was strange to see such casual behavior on a warship. Captain Hayes met him personally. He extended his hand, and Vexthor had learned this was a human greeting. The handshake was firm but not painful. Hayes was shorter than Vexthor, but there was a presence about him that filled the space. "Welcome aboard the Valiant, Commander. Let me show you around." The tour was educational and terrifying in equal measure. Hayes took him through the medical bay first. A human named Dr. Lisa Morgan ran the facility. It looked more like a battlefield hospital than a normal ship's medical room. "We expect casualties in combat," Hayes explained simply. "Dr. Morgan can perform surgery under fire, treat radiation poisoning, regenerate damaged tissue, and keep someone alive through injuries that would be fatal to most species." Dr. Morgan had kind eyes, but her hands were steady and strong. "We also study alien biology," she added. "When we make friends, we want to be able to heal them. When we make enemies, we need to know their weaknesses." She said this without any emotion, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. The engineering section was full of redundant systems. Chief Engineer Peter Cole explained that every critical system had backups. Those backups had backups. "We designed for the worst possible scenario," he said proudly. "The Valiant can lose most of her systems and still fight. We have tested it in simulations." Vexthor noticed that the crew included humans of different colors, different genders, and different ages. They all worked together seamlessly. Hayes saw him looking. "Humanity learned that diversity makes us stronger, Commander. Different people have different ideas, different ways of solving problems. We spent too long fighting over our differences. Now we celebrate them." They visited the armory. Vexthor saw weapons designed for every type of combat: ship battles, boarding actions, ground assault, even hand-to-hand fighting. A human named Kevin Price showed him a standard rifle that could fire solid bullets, energy bolts, or electromagnetic pulses. "Versatility," Price explained. "We never know what we will face, so we prepare for everything." In the recreation area, off-duty crew members were exercising and playing games. A woman named Amy Foster was teaching younger officers a strategy game called chess. Vexthor watched for a moment and realized it was essentially a war simulation. Humans played war games for fun. The mess hall was where Vexthor truly began to understand human culture. Captain Hayes shared the promised coffee. It was bitter and strong, a stimulant that humans drank daily. The crew ate together, sharing food and stories. There was laughter and friendship, but also an underlying readiness. These people could go from relaxed to combat-ready in seconds. "Commander," Hayes said, "I want you to understand something about humanity. We did not choose to be warriors. We were forced to become warriors by our world. Earth is dangerous. It has predators, diseases, and natural disasters, and we had to fight each other. We survived by becoming adaptable and tough." He continued, "When we reached space, we hoped to find peace, a community of civilized species. But we also studied galactic history. We saw fallen empires and extinct species, so we prepared. The Valiant is not even our largest warship. We have bigger vessels, carriers, dreadnoughts. We have weapons that can destroy planets." Vexthor felt cold. "Why build such terrible things?" Hayes met his eyes. "Because we will never be victims. We want to be friends with the galaxy. But if the galaxy chooses war, it will learn what humans can really do." Hayes took Vexthor to the observation deck. Through the large window, they could see a planet below. On its surface, lights twinkled in organized patterns. It was the human colony called New Horizon. "This is what we fight for," Hayes said quietly. "Our children, our future. Every weapon on this ship exists to protect them. We are not conquerors, Commander Vexthor. We are defenders. We will trade with you. We will learn from you. We will share our culture. But if anyone threatens what is ours, they will understand why we are called the apex predators of Earth." A young officer approached them. His name was Lieutenant Chris Palmer. He carried an electronic tablet. "Captain, the Kralthian High Command is requesting a formal meeting. They want to discuss a non-aggression pact and trade agreements." Hayes nodded, then turned to Vexthor. "It seems word of our meeting has spread. What do you think, Commander?" Can humans and Kralthians coexist peacefully? Vexthor thought about everything he had seen and learned. These humans were dangerous. That was clear. But they were also honest and direct. They preferred peace to war. They had shown him their strength not to intimidate, but to ensure honesty in all future dealings. Captain Hayes, I believe we can coexist. But I must warn you, the Kralthian Empire is only one of many powers in this galaxy. Some will see humanity's strength as a challenge. Others may see your colonies as easy targets. Hayes smiled grimly. Let them come, Commander. Let them all come. They will learn what every predator on Earth eventually learned. Humans do not run. We fight back. And we win. Vexthor returned to his ship with more than just diplomatic agreements. He carried a complete understanding of what humanity represented. His report to the Kralthian High Command was long and detailed. He included everything: sensor data, cultural analysis, technological assessments, personal observations. The conclusion was clear. Humanity was the most significant development in galactic affairs in thousands of years. The Kralthian response was quick. They sent diplomatic envoys immediately. Trade negotiations began within weeks. The Kralthians had advanced materials science and biological research. Humans had military technology and industrial capacity. It was a natural partnership built on mutual benefit and respect, but not all species reacted the same way. News of humanity spread through the galactic community like wildfire. The Council of Nine, a loose coalition of elder species that maintained relative peace, called an emergency session. Representative Qual of the Vethys Collective watched footage of the Valiant's weapons demonstration with growing alarm. This cannot be allowed, Qual declared to the Council. A species this militaristic will destabilize everything we have built. They must be stopped before they become a real threat. But Elder Nisara of the Wisdom Keepers disagreed. She was ancient even by her species' standards. She had seen many civilizations rise and fall. I have studied the humans carefully, she said calmly. They are not aggressors. They are survivors. There is a difference. They fight when threatened, but they have also shown remarkable capacity for cooperation. The debate went on for days. Some species wanted immediate military action, a preemptive strike to cripple humanity before they could expand further. Others wanted isolation. They hoped to contain humanity through quarantine. Still others, like the Kralthians, wanted engagement and cooperation. Meanwhile, humanity continued to expand. New colonies appeared on distant worlds. More warships were built and launched. But humans also built medical ships, science vessels, and diplomatic cruisers. When they made contact with new species, their approach was always the same: direct and honest. This is who we are. This is what we can do. How would you like to proceed? Some species chose friendship. The Chitter were an insectoid species, peaceful but constantly threatened by pirates. They requested human protection. Captain Margaret Cole of the UNS Guardian responded. Within 3 months, piracy in Chitter space dropped to 0. The Chitter became some of humanity's strongest allies. Other species chose hostility. The Voran Dominion was a militaristic empire. They had conquered dozens of worlds through force. They saw humanity as a rival that needed to be eliminated. They sent a battle fleet to destroy the human colony of Far Reach, 30 warships against 1 small colony. They expected an easy victory. They were wrong. 3 human warships were stationed at Far Reach. The destroyer UNS Defiant, commanded by Captain Jacob Stone, led the defense. The humans did not try to negotiate. They had learned that the Voran only respected strength. The Battle of Far Reach lasted 3 hours. It became the stuff of legends. The human ships moved with impossible agility. Their weapons cut through Voran shields like they were paper. The 3 ships worked together with perfect coordination, as if they shared one mind. They covered each other. They exploited every weakness in the Voran formation. When the battle ended, all 3 human ships were still operational, though damaged. Of the 30 Voran vessels, 15 were destroyed outright. The rest fled in disorder. Captain Stone sent a single message to the Voran Dominion. Far Reach is under human protection. Return at your own risk. The Voran never came back. More importantly, they told other species about the battle. The message spread quickly. Do not fight humans unless you are ready for total war. Do not threaten their colonies. Do not underestimate them. 6 months after first contact with the Kralthians, the galaxy had changed. Humanity was now recognized as a major power. Nobody knew exactly how many ships they had, how many colonies they had established, or what their full military capacity was. But everyone knew enough to be cautious. The United Nations Space Command established diplomatic missions on dozens of worlds. Human merchants began trading alongside Kralthian, Chitter, and others. Human scientists joined research projects that benefited the entire galactic community. Humans opened universities where aliens could learn about Earth and its history. They shared medical knowledge that saved lives. They offered technological assistance to developing species, but the military expansion never stopped. Admiral Richard Cruz commanded the Human First Fleet, which consisted of over 100 warships. In an interview with a Kralthian journalist, he explained humanity's philosophy simply. We hope for peace. We work for peace, but we prepare for war. We have seen what happens to civilizations that lower their guard. We will not make that mistake. Back on Earth, in the United Nations headquarters, Secretary General Helen Park addressed the General Assembly. Representatives from every nation on Earth listened as she spoke about humanity's place in the cosmos. We have taken our place among the stars, she said. We go forward with open hands and defended hearts. We will be the friend you need or the enemy you deserve. The choice has never been ours alone. Other species must decide how they will treat us. We will respond accordingly. The speech was broadcast across human space. It was also transmitted to every species that humanity had made contact with. The message was clear. Humanity was here. Humanity was strong. And humanity would not be pushed around. On the UNS Valiant, Captain Hayes stood on the bridge looking at the stars. Lieutenant Palmer approached with new orders. Captain, we have been assigned to explore Sector 447. Long-range scans have detected what might be ancient ruins. Could be archaeologically significant. Hayes nodded. Plot the course. And Palmer, make sure all weapons are fully charged. Palmer smiled slightly. They always are, sir. As the Valiant jumped to faster-than-light speeds, Hayes thought about how far humanity had come. From a single world to an interstellar civilization in less than 3 centuries. From hundreds of warring nations to a unified species. From prey animals hiding in caves to the apex predators of the galaxy. The first encounter with the Kralthians had indeed left them speechless. But it was just the beginning. Every species that met humanity would receive the same message. We come in peace. We prefer friendship. But we bow to no one. We are humanity, and we are here to stay. In the depths of space, the UNS Defiant limped toward a repair station. Captain Stone walked through his damaged ship, checking on his crew. They had won the Battle of Far Reach, but it had not been easy. 3 ships against 30. They had taken damage. They had lost people. Stone stopped at the memorial wall where names of the fallen were inscribed. 5 crew members had died defending the colony. 5 people who would never see Earth again. He placed his hand on the wall for a moment, then continued his rounds. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Linda White was already working on repairs. Her uniform was stained with oil and sweat. How long until we are operational? Stone asked. 2 weeks for basic systems. Maybe a month for full combat readiness. But sir, we held. 3 against 30 and we held. Stone nodded. We did more than hold, we won. And we sent a message. Nobody threatens human colonies without consequences. 1 year after first contact, the galaxy had settled into a new reality. Humanity was no longer a curiosity or a potential threat. They were an established power with influence that grew daily. But with that growth came challenges that would test everything humanity had built. Commander Vexthor found himself assigned as the Kralthian liaison to human space. He had become something of an expert on humanity, having spent months studying their culture and visiting their colonies. He was aboard the UNS Valiant again, this time as an invited guest rather than a nervous explorer. Captain Hayes greeted him warmly. Commander, good to see you again. I trust your journey was comfortable? It was, Captain. Your merchant vessels are quite impressive, fast and well defended. Hayes smiled. We learned early that trade routes need protection. But you are not here for a social visit. What brings you to the Valiant? Vexthor's expression became serious. We have a problem, Captain. A mutual problem. The Zephrani Concordat has begun aggressive expansion near the border between our territories and yours. They have attacked 3 neutral colonies in the past month. Hayes pulled up a star map. The Zephrani territory was marked in red. It was expanding like a spreading stain. What do we know about them? They are a relatively new spacefaring species. Only 500 years of space travel. but they are numerous and breed quickly. They believe it is their destiny to control this entire sector of the galaxy. They see other species as obstacles to be removed. Hayes studied the map carefully. Have they attacked any Kralthian or human colonies? Not yet, but it is only a matter of time. The neutral colonies they destroyed were in the buffer zone between our territories. They are testing us, Captain. They want to see if we will respond. Hayes called his senior officers to the bridge. Lieutenant Palmer, Dr. Morgan, Chief Engineer Cole, and Commander Sarah Mitchell, the Valiant's first officer. They gathered around the map while Vexthor explained the situation. The Zephrani have approximately 200 warships. Vexthor continued. Their technology is less advanced than ours, but they compensate with numbers. They attack in swarms, overwhelming their targets through sheer volume of fire. Commander Mitchell studied the tactical data. Their formation patterns are predictable. They rely on mass rather than strategy. We could exploit that. The question is whether we should, Hayes said. Commander Vexthor, what is the Kralthian Empire's position? We believe the Zephrani must be stopped, but we also believe humanity should be involved in that decision. If we act alone, it could create tension between our peoples. If we act together, it sends a clear message to the galaxy. Humanity and the Kralthian Empire stand united. Hayes nodded slowly. A joint operation. It would be the first of its kind. Exactly. It would also give us the opportunity to test our combined military capabilities. The Council of Nine is watching us closely, Captain. Some species still fear that humanity and the Kralthians might become too powerful together. A successful joint operation would prove that our alliance makes the galaxy safer, not more dangerous. The discussion continued for hours. They reviewed intelligence reports, tactical assessments, and diplomatic considerations. Finally, Hayes made his decision. Commander Vexthor, I will recommend to my superiors that humanity join this operation, but I want certain conditions. First, we command our own forces. No joint command structure yet. We are not ready for that level of integration. Second, rules of engagement must be clear. We fight to disable, not destroy, unless given no choice. Third, any colonies we liberate remain independent. Neither humanity nor the Kralthian Empire claims them. Vexthor agreed immediately. Those terms are acceptable. I believe my government will approve. 2 weeks later, a joint human-Kralthian fleet assembled at the edge of neutral space. 5 human warships, including the Valiant, joined with 7 Kralthian vessels. It was an impressive display of force. More importantly, it was a display of cooperation. Admiral Richard Cruz commanded the human contingent from his flagship, the UNS Resolute. Admiral Thren, Vexthor's old mentor, commanded the Kralthian forces from the Pride of Kralth. The 2 admirals established communication protocols and coordinated their strategy. The plan was straightforward. The combined fleet would move into the contested zone and confront the Zephrani forces. They would offer one chance for peaceful withdrawal. If the Zephrani refused, the fleet would disable their ships and force a retreat. The goal was not conquest but deterrence. The Zephrani had a fleet of 50 ships in the contested zone. When the human Kralthian fleet arrived, the Zephrani commander, Warlord Zexnar, was confident. 50 ships against 12. The numbers were on his side. Admiral Cruz opened communication. Warlord Zexnar, this is Admiral Richard Cruz of the United Nations Space Command. We are here with our Kralthian allies to deliver a message. Your attacks on neutral colonies must stop immediately. Withdraw your forces from this territory within 24 hours or we will remove you by force. Zexnar's response was full of contempt. You come here with 12 ships and make demands? I have 50 warships. Your alliance means nothing. You will be destroyed, and your colonies will be next. Admiral Thren tried next, his tone more diplomatic. Warlord, please reconsider. We do not wish to cause unnecessary death. Retreat now and this can end peacefully. But Zexnar had already made up his mind. You have until I finish speaking to flee. After that, we will show you what happens to those who challenge the Zephrani Concordat. Admiral Cruz sighed. He had hoped it would not come to this. All ships, battle stations. Rules of engagement are clear. Disable, not destroy, but defend yourselves as needed. The Zephrani fleet charged forward in a massive wave, exactly as their tactical profile suggested. They believed their numbers would overwhelm the smaller combined fleet. They were about to learn a harsh lesson. The human ships moved first. Their acceleration was shocking. The Valiant and her sister ships blazed forward at speeds the Zephrani could not match. They tore through the Zafrani formation like knives through silk. Their weapons were precise and devastating. Engines were disabled. Weapon systems were destroyed. Life support was left intact. Within minutes, a dozen Zafrani ships were drifting helplessly. The Kralthian ships followed, their own weapons adding to the chaos. Kralthian technology focused on energy weapons and shield disruption. They targeted the Zafrani command ships, cutting off coordination and communications. Without orders, the Zafrani formation began to collapse. The battle lasted 30 minutes. When it was over, 40 of the 50 Zafrani ships were disabled. The remaining 10 fled at maximum speed. Not a single human or Kralthian vessel had been destroyed. A few had minor damage, but nothing serious. Admiral Cruz opened a channel to the disabled Zafrani ships. "Warlord Zexnar, your fleet is defeated. We are leaving you with functional life support and communications. Use them to call for rescue. Consider this a lesson. The next time you attack peaceful colonies, the response will be much harsher." As the combined fleet withdrew, Captain Hayes stood on the bridge of the Valiant. Lieutenant Palmer approached with casualty reports. "No fatalities on any human ship, sir. Minor injuries only." "The Kralthians report similar numbers." Hayes nodded. "Good. What about the Zafrani?" "We detected approximately 200 casualties among their crews. No ships were destroyed as ordered. They will all survive if they get medical attention soon. Send the coordinates of the disabled ships to the nearest Zafrani base. Make sure they can mount a rescue operation." Palmer looked confused. "Sir, we just defeated them. Why help them?" Hayes turned to face his young officer. "Because we are not conquerors, Lieutenant. We are defenders. We stopped them from hurting others. But we are not monsters. We do not leave people to die in space if we can prevent it. That is the difference between us and them." The victory at the Battle of Neutral Zone, as it came to be called, had far-reaching consequences. The Zafrani Concordat immediately ceased all aggressive expansion. Warlord Zexnar was removed from power by his own people, who recognized that continuing hostilities would lead to their destruction. More importantly, the galaxy saw what human Kralthian cooperation could achieve. The joint operation had been flawless. Two species with very different technologies and cultures had worked together perfectly. It was a powerful message. Within weeks, other species began approaching both humanity and the Kralthians about potential alliances. Trade agreements multiplied. Scientific cooperation increased. The Council of Nine, which had been skeptical of humanity, began to see them as a stabilizing force rather than a threat. 5 years after first contact, humanity had become an integral part of the galactic community. The UNS Valiant was no longer the fearsome unknown warship that had terrified Commander Vexthor. It was now a symbol of protection and stability. But new challenges always arose, and the greatest test of the human-alien alliance was about to begin. Captain Hayes had been promoted to admiral and given command of the Third Fleet. The Valiant remained his flagship, though she had been upgraded several times. Commander Vexthor, who had retired from active Kralthian military service, now served as the chief diplomatic advisor to the Human Kralthian Alliance Council. They were both present at the emergency meeting when the news arrived. A distress signal from the edge of known space. The message was fragmented and desperate. An unknown force was attacking colonies along the frontier. Not one or two colonies, but dozens. Entire populations were disappearing. Elder Nisura of the Wisdom Keepers addressed the council. Her ancient face was grave. "We have encountered this before thousands of years ago. We called them the Harvesters. They appear once every few thousand years, strip entire worlds of resources and life, then vanish back into deep space." Admiral Hayes studied the limited data they had. The Harvester ships were massive, far larger than any vessel in the known galaxy. Their technology was beyond anything anyone had encountered. Entire planets were being stripped bare in days. How were they stopped last time? Hayes asked. Nisara's expression was bleak. They were not stopped. They simply left when they had taken what they wanted. 3 civilizations were completely destroyed. Dozens more were devastated. We survived only because we were far from their path. That is not acceptable, Hayes said firmly. We have the technology to fight now. We have alliances. We are stronger than the civilizations of the past. But as more data came in, the situation looked increasingly desperate. The Harvesters had already destroyed 15 colonies. Their ships shrugged off weapons that could destroy normal warships. They moved through space using technology that sensors could barely detect, and they were heading toward more populated regions. Vexthor pulled up a projection. If they maintain their current course and speed, they will reach the Chitter homeworld in 3 weeks. After that, they will be in position to attack either Kralthian or human core worlds within 2 months. The council chamber erupted in argument. Some species wanted to flee, to abandon the frontier and protect their homeworlds. Others wanted to negotiate, to offer the harvesters resources in exchange for peace. But a few, including the humans and Kralthians, wanted to fight. Admiral Hayes stood and waited for silence. When he spoke, his voice carried absolute certainty. Running is not an option. These harvesters see us as resources to be harvested. You cannot negotiate with something that views you as food. We have only one choice: we fight. And we fight together. But how? Representative Qual demanded. Their technology is superior to ours. Their ships are invulnerable. Nothing is invulnerable, Hayes replied. Everything has a weakness. We just need to find it. I propose we assemble a joint fleet. Every species that can contribute ships and weapons should do so. We pool our knowledge and resources. We study these harvesters and find their weakness. Elder Nisara spoke again. In the ancient records, there is mention of a vulnerability. The harvester ships generate enormous power, but they have massive heat signatures. It was theorized that their cooling systems might be a weak point, but no one had weapons capable of exploiting it. Admiral Cruz, who commanded the First Fleet, leaned forward. Our plasma torpedoes generate extreme heat. If we could overload their cooling systems, we might be able to disable them. The plan began to take shape. Every spacefaring species contributed what they could. The humans provided warships and tactical coordination. The Kralthians contributed advanced sensor technology and energy weapons. The Chitter, despite being primarily peaceful, offered their industrial capacity to produce ammunition and supplies. Even former enemies like the Zephrani sent ships, recognizing that the harvesters threatened everyone. Within 2 weeks, the largest fleet in galactic history had assembled. Over 300 ships from a dozen different species. Admiral Hayes commanded from the Valiant. Beside him, Admiral Thren commanded the Kralthian contingent. They had divided the fleet into strike groups, each with a specific role. The harvesters were detected near a colony world called Hope's End. The population had already been evacuated, but the harvester ships were stripping the planet bare. There were 5 of them, each one larger than a city. Hayes opened a communication channel that broadcast to the entire fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Hayes. Today we face an enemy that sees us as prey. They have destroyed our colonies and killed our people. They think we are weak. They think we will run. They are wrong. Today we show them what happens when the galaxy stands united. Today we show them that we are not prey. We are predators. All ships attack pattern Alpha. Execute. The fleet moved forward in coordinated waves. The first wave consisted of fast attack ships that drew the harvesters' attention. The second wave targeted their weapon systems, trying to suppress their firepower. The third wave, led by the Valiant and other heavy warships, went after their cooling systems. The battle was unlike anything in recorded history. The harvester ships fired weapons that could vaporize smaller vessels instantly. Their armor resisted almost everything thrown at them. Ships were destroyed. Thousands died in the first minutes. But the fleet did not break. They held formation and continued the attack. Admiral Hayes watched the tactical display intently. The harvesters were powerful, but they were also predictable. They focused on the largest threats first, which meant they were ignoring the smaller ships. That was a mistake. All strike groups focus fire on Harvester 3. Concentrate plasma torpedoes on its port cooling vent. Now dozens of ships fired simultaneously. Plasma torpedoes, missiles, and energy beams converged on a single point. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the harvester ship began to glow. Heat readings spiked. Internal explosions rippled across its hull. "It is working," Lieutenant Palmer shouted. "Their cooling system is failing." The harvester tried to maneuver away, but it was too late. Its systems overloaded. The massive ship went dark and began drifting. It was not destroyed, but it was disabled. "Target Harvester 1, same strategy," Hayes ordered. The fleet adapted quickly. Now that they knew the tactic worked, they focused their efforts. One by one, the harvester ships were disabled. The 5th and final harvester attempted to flee, but human stealth fighters pursued it. They had been waiting for this moment. The fighters hit its cooling system from multiple angles simultaneously. It too went dark. When the battle ended, the fleet had lost 68 ships. Over 10,000 people had died, but all 5 harvester ships were disabled and drifting. For the first time in recorded history, the harvesters had been defeated. Admiral Hayes stood in the observation deck of the Valiant, looking at the disabled harvester ships. Vexthor joined him, both of them exhausted but alive. "We did it," Vexthor said quietly.
"We actually stopped them," Hayes nodded.
"We did, but at a cost. Too many good people died today. They died protecting others. There is honor in that." Hayes turned to his old friend. "When you first encountered the Valiant 5 years ago, you were terrified. You thought humanity was going to conquer the galaxy." Vexthor smiled slightly. "I was wrong. Humanity did not conquer the galaxy. You united it. Today, a dozen species fought side by side. That would have been impossible before humans arrived." In the weeks that followed, scientists from every species studied the disabled harvester ships. They learned much about this ancient enemy. They also learned that more harvesters existed, somewhere in deep space. But now the galaxy was prepared. Now they knew how to fight back. The victory at Hope's End became a turning point. The Council of Nine formally recognized humanity as an elder species, despite their young age as a spacefaring civilization. The Human-Kralthian Alliance expanded into a true coalition that included dozens of species. Admiral Hayes eventually retired from military service. He spent his final years teaching at the newly established Galactic Defense Academy, where officers from every species learned strategy and tactics. Commander Vexthor taught there too, offering courses on first contact protocols and diplomatic history. The Valiant was eventually retired and turned into a museum ship. Visitors from across the galaxy came to see the warship that had changed everything. They walked her corridors and imagined that first encounter, when a Kralthian exploration vessel stumbled upon a human warship and was rendered speechless. On the bridge of the Valiant, now preserved exactly as it had been, a plaque was mounted. It bore the names of every crew member who had served aboard her. Beneath those names was a simple inscription, written in every major galactic language. "We came in peace. We were prepared for war. We hoped for friends. We found family. This is humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not conquest, but unity. Not domination, but cooperation. We are all stronger together." Years turned into decades. The galaxy continued to change and grow. New species were discovered and welcomed. Old conflicts were resolved. The harvesters never returned, perhaps recognizing that this galaxy was no longer easy prey. And at the heart of it all was the memory of that first encounter, when Commander Vexthor met Captain Hayes, when the Kralthians learned what humanity was capable of, when two species looked at each other across the vastness of space and chose friendship over fear. The UNS Valiant had indeed rendered the aliens speechless. But more importantly, it had given them hope. Hope that the galaxy could be better. Hope that different species could work together. Hope that strength and compassion were not opposites but partners. That was humanity's true legacy. Not their weapons or their technology, but their unwavering belief that the universe was better when people stood together. That lesson, learned in fire and blood and sacrifice, would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. The era of humanity had begun, and it had made the galaxy a better place.